All right, back on the conversation. Joining us now, Alex Salmon. He is a staff writer at the American Prospect, and he has written about the Small Business Administration and how they are conducting themselves in handing out some of the stimulus funding that recently got passed. Alex, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So, Alex, what is the normal job of the Small Business Administration, and what did they do in this case instead?
Well, the Small Business Administration is generously put as a backwater of the federal government. It's a very minor administration. They have about 4,000 employees, and on the average day of the SBA, they'll be doling out economic injury loans. So in case of natural disasters or something like that, they can provide bridge funding to small businesses to get them through a disaster. And the bulk of what they do beyond that is to offer loans to minority and women entrepreneurs. So they offer often pretty favorable terms on small loans for small business owners, and with the idea of kind of expanding the base of entrepreneurship in this country. It's a fairly marginal operation, but they do dole out a couple $1 billion in loans every year, and that does have some impact on the greater business community in this country.
So if they're helping small business rather than big business, and especially if they're helping minority-owned businesses, their budget must be getting cut under Republicans. Is that true?
That's right. Yeah, that's kind of been the story of the Small Business Administration for decades now. So you can go back under Obama, under Bush, under Clinton, as you go back through various both Republican and Democratic administrations, down through Reagan, you see attempts basically to get rid of the SBA in its entirety. And so sometimes it's a Republican-led Congress and bring a Democratic president trying to get rid of it. Other times it's all hands on deck, and there have been various attempts to get rid of it and to defund it or to otherwise defang it and prevent it from being a functional agency. And a lot of those attempts have been more or less successful. So that's kind of how we've arrived at the SBA we have today.
I mean, even that little statement there shows you exactly what's wrong with American politics. There is no end to how full of crap Republican politicians are. Saying, oh yeah, small business, backbone of the country. We love small business. Everything we do is for small business. Cut the small business funding. No one cares. Why? Because they get all their campaign donations from big business, not small business. And then, but as you mentioned, both sets of administrations, Republican and Democratic, have been doing it. Why? Because they also take money from big businesses. Democrats do. So, and it's also what's wrong with the media. So outside of publications like American Prospect, The Intercept, and others, nobody covers it. They're like, oh yeah, corporate Democrats, they're awesome. When they give away all of our money to the big business and screw over small business. Anyway, in this case, thank God it survived, because it, in this case, is actually giving out money to small businesses. But how's that being executed?
Yeah, so when Congress convened to write the CARES Act and provide relief for the coronavirus crisis, they decided to tap the SBA to disperse a massive amount of funding to save small businesses, and not only to save them, but also to save the employees of those businesses, many of whom have been laid off or furloughed or seen their hours cut. And so the Congress decided to use the SBA to disgorge $350 billion in loans, forgivable loans, with the idea that it would save small business, it would save the employees of small businesses, it would more or less stabilize the economy through this period of widespread shutdowns. And from the very beginning, an agency with 4,000 people is not in a position to dole out that sort of money with rapid, with absolutely rapid speed. So there have been a number of issues. Some of them have been well cataloged in media. Others have been kind of less attended to. But the kind of cascading scandals that we saw with the passage of the CARES Act, a lot of that outrage was directed at the SBA and at this particular program, which was there to, in some ways, was the last line of defense between 50% of the economy and extinction level event. So that was, that's why we've seen some more attention paid to this administration that I think, 2 months ago, none of us had ever even heard of.
Right. And then they ran out of money, and then they reloaded. Um, and how's it been since they reloaded, Alex?
It's interesting because the first round of funding, there was $349 billion. They ran out of money in 13 days. I mean, it was a blink of an eye, and the money was gone. And most of it, or I shouldn't say most of it, but much of it went to businesses that were not so needy. There were, businesses that were large businesses, businesses that had billion-dollar valuations, businesses that had close connections to the Trump administration. But that was phase one. Money was gone too fast. There wasn't enough of it, and many small business owners were hung out to dry. I think only 5% of small businesses got money in the first round. So Congress then appropriated more money in the second round, hundreds of billions more in the second round. But by this time, there was so much confusion as to what the rules were for loan forgiveness and how they would be applied, and when business owners could use that money, that they were so wary to accept it that now it's been weeks and weeks since that second round of funding has arrived, and they still haven't run out of money. So initially there was concern, well, it's not enough money. It's going to be gone in 2 days. There was a report that it would be gone in 2 days. And now weeks later, there's still money, and business owners are actually afraid to take it because they don't know if they might accidentally violate the loan forgiveness clauses, if they might commit bank fraud unknowingly, and the kind of shifting parameters of this program have now mean that actually there's more money than there is demand, which is a different concern, but a major one unto itself.
And I'm sure that the giant multinational corporations that are taking the lion's share of the money from the taxpayers, they're also concerned about all these things, right? I mean, because as soon as it's over, they're going to crack down on all the small businesses. But obviously, I'm being facetious because there's no way in the world they'll ever crack down on big business, right?
Right. And so you see in this program all of the structural favoritism of this economy. And so obviously the SBA can't give the loans out, by itself with 4,000 employees. So they contract it out to the banks. Well, the banks, when they get that money, who are they going to give it to? They're going to give it to the people, the clients that they have the most robust relationships with, and they can get the biggest loans. So obviously large corporations, and in this case, it was Shake Shack or Ruth's Chris Steakhouse or any number of kind of large restaurant chains or large car dealership chains, you name it. They have the closest relationships with the banks, so the banks hook them up with the money. The banks get they get a nice tidy fee for their trouble, and those two groups make out like bandits. And who's left behind is the people who are small businesses with small bank accounts and don't have that kind of concierge service that these large corporations have. And so that's kind of the system you end up with, where everything is right in their corner of the world, and for a lot of other people, there's nothing.
So, Alex, when we come out of this, let's hope. What do you think is going to happen to the Small Business Administration next? And what do you think is going to happen to some of the small companies that took the money? Do you think they're going to be okay, or is there going to be some fervor to? And here's my guess: to crack down on the smallest possible companies, so that they could give the appearance of being tough on people who took money and didn't do the right things with it, while leaving alone the main culprits of that, their donors in the big business community.
Right. Yeah, we're already seeing a little bit of what this might look like in the future. So Marco Rubio, who actually wrote the provision that allowed for Shake Shack and Ruth's Chris and some of these most flagrant abusers of this program to take that money, to be first in line and take those maximum loans. He is now calling for an investigation into local Planned Parenthood chapters that received money on the grounds that they're too close to the national organization, and therefore it's an abuse of the program. And so you kind of see this very much how this could go. This kind of cynical call for investigation and accountability that, of course, is never that standard is never held to for large corporations, but to these smaller businesses, and the kind of the accountability that we will see, of course, is going to be highly unbalanced and will be highly politically motivated. And I think we're starting to see the beginning of that already. So it's definitely a concern and something to keep an eye out for. Obviously, the cynicism of those things is to be anticipated, but also still alarming and oftentimes just ridiculous. So it's something to keep track of for sure.
Yeah. One more thing about that. So as they do this, let's talk about the magnitude of it, because we've got about $9 trillion. Even the Trump administration people are referring to it as $9 trillion that was giving out in stimulus money. $4 trillion of that is the Federal Reserve saying, don't worry, if you're a big business, we'll buy anything, including junk bonds, right? And so you don't ever have to worry about capitalism. We got socialism for the rich as far as the eye can see. But you have a sense of scale. That's $4 trillion they're going to print and give to their friends if need be, right? In the form of loans, except for the junk bonds, which might not be loans at all, then we might just have to eat that. So what is the budget of the Small Business Administration comparatively? I'm curious.
Yeah, so the Paycheck Protection Program, which is what we've been talking about so far, has about $669 billion appropriated for it, I believe. In a regular year, the SBA does about $30 billion in loans. For 4,000 employees, its budget it's quite small. And it's smaller all the time. And so Jovita Carranza, who's the head of the administration currently, in February was advocating for a 20% budget cut, even while coronavirus was very much a part of our social fabric. So we're talking about a very small agency that's very much underfunded, and it could be an effective agency. If we did decide to balloon that budget to billions of dollars to hire staff to do these sorts of things, it could be a real player in governance. But as it stands currently, it's next to nothing. And compared to the $9 trillion or the $4 trillion in corporate bailout money that's available through the Fed, it's basically a rounding error. So it's orders of magnitude in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So not even the emergency money, $9 trillion overall, $669 billion for small business is about 7%, if I've done the math right in my head. And the $30 billion they normally can give out compared to the trillions that the Federal Reserve can print and give to large businesses at any time is nothing at all. So that gives you a sense of the perspective and the priorities of American politicians. And we're told by the rest of corporate media that it is a wild coincidence that all of those politicians happen to be funded by those same giant businesses. Well, we'll have to take their word for it. All right, Alex Salmon writes for the American Prospect, and he does not take their word for it. Good story on the SBA, and thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.